Welcome to Power Up Your Practice, the go-to podcast for law firm owners and managing attorneys working on the business, not in it. I'm Ruby Powers, your guide into the heart of law practice management, bringing you insights from leading legal minds, trailblazing attorneys, and expert guests who provide you with an actionable perspective on running your firm more effectively and efficiently. Prepare to open your mind, be inspired, and power up your practice to the next level. Hey everyone, this is Ruby Powers. I'm your host and of your companion through this evolving landscape of law practice management. In each episode, we're going to hear from our guest superpowers and their perspectives on reaching success, however they define it, in the realm of law practice management. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, and we can find ways to learn from each other and make our lives easier and find a better path to success. So I am super excited to have my guest today, Leela Madan. She is the owner and patent attorney of Leela Madan Law PLLC in Houston, and we've known each other for several years. We actually met in the parking lot going to a Vistage like conference or something like that, which was related to running our law firms, and we've been friends and helped each other out through thick and thin for ever since we met, and I recently have even hired her to help me with all the IP for all my businesses. And it made me think, I think there's a lot of attorneys, even though we're attorneys, we don't understand what IP is. And so I wanted to have you, to have Leela come on and give us a little bit more guidance about how things work and how we need to protect ourselves. But Leela, welcome. Thanks so much for coming. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll continue.
All right. Thank you so much, Ruby. I'm so happy to be here today. I'm a huge fan of you and your businesses, and I'm just tickled to be on this show talking to you and your audience. I really look up to you as a businesswoman and an attorney. So I'm really, really happy to be here today. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Leela Madan, and my law firm is Madan Law PLLC. We are intellectual property and business attorneys from time to time, and we specialize in helping business owners file patent, trademark, and copyright applications to get those things registered. And we help business owners develop strategies around how to protect their IP, and in many cases, what IP do they even have? Because a lot of times people don't even know that they have IP. So that's a quick intro to me. I've been practicing on my own. I've been running my own law firm for almost 11 years, which is just crazy to me because I feel like it was still just yesterday that I was working for someone else at a firm. But man, have I learned a lot in these last 11 years. And I still feel like every day I learn something new. So did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. So, in this episode, we're going to do an intellectual property deep dive as to what is it, what do we need to know as law firm owners, and how can we protect our assets and our intellectual property. And I think we'll go to a basic level, even though some of you might be IP attorneys who might be listening, but really this is something just for us as for our practice, but also to know things that could help us with our clients, because I represent companies for like employment-based immigration or investment immigration. And so it's good for me to have a good grasp of it. And the other thing that's interesting about both of our areas of law, they're both federal. So that opens a lot of doors to practice around the U.S. in this realm. But okay, so just talk to us like we're dummies and we don't understand what IP law is. Like what? Give us the Cliff Notes version. Like what is it? and maybe some of the terminology that people often get interchanged or confused.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. I love that. So, first of all, everybody gets the types of IP mixed up. Even other attorneys, when I talk to them, they'll tell me they need a patent when they really need a trademark. So look, there's not going to be a quiz at the end of this. I don't need you to become an expert on this, that's why you can call me. So, but just as a high level explanation, let me go over the 4 types of intellectual property. Okay. We've got patents, we've got trademarks, we've got copyrights, and we've got trade secrets. And interestingly enough, I just went to a conference last week and someone told me they think name, image, and likeness is the 5th type of IP. Never heard that before, but I think I agree with it. But we'll stick to the first 4 real quick. So number 1, patents. Okay. Patents, think about Shark Tank. You've invented something, you've invented a widget, or maybe a software or an AI technology, because that's the world we live in these days. That's something where you have a process or some solution in your industry that you have made that you want to protect and own and be able to monetize, either through selling it or licensing it, or just by a competitive advantage of being the only one who can do it that way. So an example of a law firm owner who I worked with on a patent would be a client of mine who does a lot of settlements. I think they do maybe personal injury, and they're constantly negotiating settlements, and they decided that there was a better way to get the 2 parties in a settlement negotiation to come together. And they did that using software, and they paid a lot of money for some custom development, and they wanted to patent it. And so we filed a patent application for that proprietary software tool. And it's still pending, but we hope to have an end result of an issued patent for that process. And then they can probably sell that. Think about it. They could sell that to a law practice management software suite that already a lot of us are using as like an add-on. They could sell it to a big house like Thomson Reuters or Lexus. They could sell it one by one to individual law firms. I think there are a lot of ways that they could monetize that asset, and even create a whole new business, just like you have done with yours, where it's separate and apart from their law firm, if that makes sense. The second type of sorry, do you have questions?
Oh, no. I mean, I think that's really smart. And I mean, because that's where I was reading something with Dan Sullivan, with Strategic Coach, and he was talking about how much they're going to patent, copyright. Well, you're going to explain all the terms, but they're going to protect all of their intellectual property for future value. And I was like, that's a good point. Like, that's the reason why I wanted you to be on this episode, to come on the podcast, was because I think there's a lot more value in what we're doing, because a lot of times it might just be helping one client at a time, which, as much as we love, but we're creating systems, we're creating ways of doing things, and we could be inventing things we didn't even realize we were inventing.
Absolutely. That's right.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it right, you are creating systems and processes, right?
Right, exactly.
So that's intellectual property, right? So the way you protect a process is with a patent. And then if you have coding behind the software that achieves the goal, then we can copyright the source code, right? So there are different ways to even protect just one thing. The next type of intellectual property is trademarks, and trademarks are going to be like branding, right? So like the name of your law firm, or if you have a really cool tagline or a logo, right? So for Power Up Your Practice, we did the word mark, the words power up your practice, but there's also, you have your design mark, your logo wheel that's kind of consistent from brand to brand, right? So there are all sorts of branding elements out there that you can protect with a trademark. And as a law firm owner, you're no different from any other business. You still have a name, you still have a logo, you still maybe have a tagline or something that you want to protect. So for example, my tagline, my handle on Instagram is Your IP Attorney, right? So I used to start my videos and say, hey guys, it's Leela, Your IP Attorney, today's tip, blah, 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 right? Well, I filed and got a trademark registration for Your IP Attorney. And, there are a lot of law firms that we work with who we've done the same thing for. So there's a big personal injury law firm here in Houston that has filed several trademark applications with us. Actually, there are a couple. They're all the the billboard guys that you see driving around. We've got several of those trademarks that we have filed for those attorneys, and they get serious about them. They don't want anyone infringing, and it's funny because I see, out in the world of business, a lot of people copy each other all the time. Even other lawyers copy each other. And I can't tell you how many times someone will call me and say, look, I found this. They're using my identical wording and they are a direct competitor. And so by having that trademark registered, it gives us a lot more options for how to immediately stop the infringement, maybe even get it immediately removed without filing a lawsuit, or just send them a nice little message saying, hey, you're infringing, please stop. So trademarks are a big piece of the puzzle. Just because you're a law firm doesn't mean you don't have a trademark. And in fact, I would argue that it would be even better to get your trademark registered so that another Powers Law Group doesn't open up in Houston, for example, and cause a bunch of confusion.
Oh, yeah. Good point. Yeah, there's one in like Atlanta, I think, sometime, but it's a different area of law. So, but other than that, yeah, you're right. And then especially with like different states opening up the way you don't have to name the law firm after yourself, like in Texas, and some other states doing that. So then that really opens up a whole nother realm of possibilities.
Yeah, I think it's a trade name is what it is. So in Texas, you can have trade names, and we did one of those recently too. Actually, a guy I went to law school with called me up and he said, hey, I want to do this trademark. I said, okay, great, let's do it. So we did it. Yeah.
So, okay, so now are we on to the third one?
Oh, yeah, we're on to the third one. Thanks for keeping me on track.
I'm like taking notes mentally so I don't sound like I don't know what I'm talking about.
No, I love it. I told you there's no quiz at the end of this. Just call me. Your idea.
I feel like there should be a quiz though.
Maybe we can do one. We can collaborate on one together and do a quiz. So the third type of intellectual property is copyrights. Okay, so copyrights, those are works of art, kind of the way to protect. Think about Disney, right? They've got cartoons, they've got movies, they've got written works. So copyright in the world of law practice management, copyright would come in handy to protect website copy, or if you are creating a course. So for example, if you have like an online course for how to become an immigration attorney or how to power up your practice, right? Those types of videos that you make could be protected by copyright. Any course materials that you create to go with them, also copyright. Any of the content on your website, even your frequently asked questions, your About Us section, like I said, copying is rampant. I wouldn't be surprised if there was a young immigration law firm out there who looked at your website and copied it all, right? I've seen it happen before. So many times. I've seen it where someone will copy the FAQs from a competitor website and they won't even change the company name. Like it'll still say my client.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, it's interesting. So how do you say, oh, I didn't copy it, it's just a coincidence, when it literally has my client's name in there, right? So so website copy is a good one. And presentations, like if you're going to go do a CLE or you're going to present to your networking group, I always like to put the little copyright symbol on the bottom of my PowerPoint slides to make sure that the people watching know that this is my intellectual property. So copyright is going to be, this is what we call soft IP, right? And it's going to protect works of art, copy, photos. If you pay a lot of money for headshots or photos of the skyline of Houston or something like that, those are technically intellectual property that you can own.
And that also, like if someone wrote a book or something like that.
Oh yeah, of course. Right. If someone writes a book or an article, definitely those things too.
Right. And sometimes people are writing books or like ebooks or downloadable books as a marketing tool for their practices. I've seen that a lot more these days.
Definitely. Some people even publish magazines.
Oh yeah, I've seen that too. Yeah. Huh.
And then the fourth type of IP is going to be trade secrets. So trade secrets are things like systems and processes that might be patentable, but if you keep them secret, then they could be kept forever. So patents are only valid for 20 years from the filing date of the application versus a trade secret that, as long as you keep it secret, it lasts forever. So the
Whoa.
best and most famous example of a trade secret is like the Coca-Cola recipe, right? So, back when they invented it, when they first made that batch of Coca-Cola, they probably could have filed a patent application for that recipe, right? But they
Mhm.
didn't. They decided that they would that they would keep it safe and lock it up, and no one employee has access to the entire recipe. Employee A is in charge of mixing the sugar in the water or something, right? And then employee B adds in whatever other ingredients, and maybe employee C finishes it off with a little bit of syrup or carbonation or something, right? But no one employee has the entire recipe and steps all together in one. And by keeping it secret like that, you can have protection over that recipe in perpetuity versus just 20 years for a patent.
Wait, so what happens if someone figures out what the secret is? Like someone
Well, it
figures out the
depends.
rest. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely reverse engineer it, and people have
Uh-huh.
tried, right? I mean, chemists out there have analyzed the Coca-Cola samples for ages, trying to say, oh, we think it's composed of X, Y, and Z, right? But if you can successfully reverse engineer it, good for you. That's not infringement. That's not misappropriation. You're good. But if some employee runs off with the formula and says, knock, knock, hey, Pepsi, look, I've got the recipe for Coca-Cola. Do you want to buy it? Then that would definitely be an actionable event.
And then, okay, now I'm thinking about like other countries. Like, how does this work when other countries start and people in other countries start like infringing on your IP? Like, when can you, like, I mean, I think certain countries are known for like reverse engineering things people do in the US more than others, and then like try to make knockoff and copies and things. Like,
Yeah.
how do you protect your product in that situation?
Well, that's tough, right? Okay, so when we talk about patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, that's all federal U.S. law, right? So those are
Yeah.
all things that you can enforce against in the U.S. So um, if it's happening in another country, you would need to have protection in that country. So get a patent in China or India, or get a trademark registered in one of those places. But if they think that they're going to make some counterfeit shoes, let's say, or a purse, just to talk about counterfeits for a second, and they want to put the Louis Vuitton emblem on it, right? And they're in China, then that's one thing. But as soon as they import that to the US, it's infringement. And even if they
Mm.
import it in pieces and someone here in the US puts it together and says, oh, look, here's this bag, would you like to buy it? It doesn't matter, as long as whether it's made, sold, distributed, assembled, all of those things, if it's somehow on US soil or to US customers, then it's going to be infringement.
Oh wow, that's interesting. Now I'm even more intrigued by all of this. You can have some juicy stories and all of this type of stuff.
Like I said,
Um,
I've seen a lot of intentional copying.
um, well, before we continue more, we have a small note from one of our sponsors. Are you finding yourself overwhelmed with handling your own phone calls and spending endless hours on consultations that just don't qualify? Well, let me introduce you to Staffy Live, your ultimate solution for 24/7 live receptionists and intake services tailored specifically for immigration law firms. Now, picture this: empathetic, truly bilingual specialists who understand the intricacies of client care and who are experts at asking all the right questions to qualify callers efficiently. Now, with Staffing Live, you'll feel like you have a trusted partner by your side, ensuring only qualified consultations make it onto your calendar and providing valuable follow-ups when needed. As someone who's been using Staffy Live for my own law firm, I couldn't be happier. And guess what? Staffy Live is offering a generous 15-day free trial with no strings attached. Head over to staffy.live stafi.cc. That's stafi.cc and click Get Started. And don't forget to use the code RUBY, RUBY. Your future self will thank you. Thanks, Leela, for all of that. And you know that fifth thing that you were saying, the name, likeness, and
name, image, and likeness, NIL. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Friend of mine who does a lot of, she helps represent like sports and actors or something like that. She was telling me about that maybe in the last year, and I was trying to like grasp all of that. But what would that mean, like in basic terms, for us who don't know what that means?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So name, image, and likeness. Think about a celebrity or an athlete and their name and their image and their likeness, for example, right? So if it's a famous person like Taylor Swift, all right. So the name Taylor Swift and her image and her likeness are all intellectual property that she owns. And I can tell you, Taylor Swift definitely has a trademark registered for her name and everything under her massive umbrella of goods that she sells. She has filed, I can't even tell you how many trademark applications she filed. It's a lot. Okay. So if I were to create a commercial, let's say I'm going to make a commercial for your law firm, and I have a woman who looks exactly like Taylor Swift, and we give her a guitar and, you know, kind of make her look like, you know, like Taylor Swift, even if it's not her, and we shoot that commercial, if the consuming public sees that and thinks in their minds that it's Taylor Swift, then we would be infringing on her likeness, right? And if we actually called her Taylor Swift in there, then that would also be an infringement of her name, right? And of course, you can never use a celebrity's photo to endorse a product unless they actually are endorsing the product, right? So if you are a skincare company, you can't just put Taylor Swift's picture on the bottle, because that would be creating like a false endorsement, if you will. Now, where we've been seeing it come up in the last couple of years is with regard to athletics. So in particular, college athletes have been fighting for the right to get paid for their name, image, and likeness, because things like video games, like the EA Sports, and who was the other big one? They had a college football video game where they didn't put the player's name on the jersey, but it was his number and it looked just like him. And when he scored a touchdown, he made like the same celebratory movements that the actual guy did, right? So in that case, I think he was a Stanford quarterback. He sued the video game company and won because his likeness was being used. He wasn't being compensated for it. And at the time, he was ineligible to be compensated for it because there was a rule that you could not accept money or payment as a student athlete, right? So now that has changed. Now student athletes can be paid for their name, image, and likeness, and they are getting endorsements and sponsorships. Like I just saw that, who's the coach for the Colorado Buffaloes, the Deion Sanders. So his sons, I think he has 3 sons who play on that team, and they must be making a lot of money from sponsorships. Yeah, because they just bought him like a big mansion in the mountains, right? And I'm sure they did that with sponsorship money that they're receiving because they are now allowed to make money as athletes. So now that's what we're calling the 5th type of IP.
But that could also be for maybe attorneys if they become sort of maybe have a certain image or become famous or something, right? That I don't know, or it could be any for actors, and I mean it could creep into a lot of different areas. Like it might have started with the athletes, but then it can go into probably other spaces that.
Well, yeah, right. Because I started out talking about celebrities and musicians, right?
Yeah.
If you become a celebrity attorney, like our who's that guy? Rudy Giuliani. He's pretty famous, isn't he? But he started out as an attorney, right? You know, I think if he wanted to license out his name, image, or likeness, that would be an example of an attorney. And, you know, in Texas, we've got a lot of famous guys like Jim Adler, the Texas Hammer, right? I think he's probably a famous attorney who so in the Jim Adler example, I think his name, his image, and his likeness is probably one aspect of that we could protect for him. And then we could also protect the Texas Hammer as his trademark, both the words Texas Hammer and maybe even a picture of a hammer, right? Like if his logo has a hammer in it, then he could probably register that too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So there's so much to all of this, and okay, one other thing I was thinking about is how is AI like throwing a wrench into all of this, and like how is that like? Is it making things more complicated, or it's too soon to tell? Like, I mean, I feel like a lot of things are being done, like even from images, like to copywriting, and a lot of things are just being AI generated. Like how do you sort of see that playing out in the future?
Great question, Ruby. So there are two sides of the AI coin here with regard to intellectual property. So there's the side where you're generating works using AI, right? Like generating an image
Mhm.
or generating a document, like an article, let's say. So I had to write an article a couple of weeks ago, and somebody asked me, "Did you use ChatGPT to write this article?" And I said no. And they were like shocked, like, "Why would you do that?" And here's why. Um, as an author or an inventor for a patent, you can only register a work if it was invented or authored by a human. Okay, so if you
Okay.
create a work and AI generates it for you, it is not registrable. It is not patentable. The Patent Act clearly says that inventors are human. They must be human. If you try to copyright source code for your app, they will ask you, was this human coded? And if the answer
Mhm.
is no, they will not register it. So you have to attest and swear and say, that this was human coded AI, right? So anything that is generated by AI is simply not patentable, not registrable. I guess if you made a logo and you wanted to trademark it, you could probably get away with that. But I don't think you could copyright or patent anything that's generated by AI unless you can really show that there was a lot of human instruction involved. There was a big case about this recently. Some guy created an image. He made like a painting, but like
Mhm.
a digital painting, and he tried to register it for copyright, and the copyright office said no, and so he sued them, and he lost. It is Supreme Court and Copyright Office are in alignment that in order to be registrable, a work, even a digital artwork, cannot be created by AI. So that's the
Okay.
first side of the coin. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, okay, so now my brain is thinking, it seems like we're talking in all or nothing. Like what if it's a percentage like of AI and then part human? Like if it's any part human, 5%, is it all human? And like have is that like the next argument, like, or did they already clarify that?
So he tried to say that in the example of the digital artwork that he tried to register. He said, I told it where to put everything. I told it how to make it. I instructed the app to generate it in this way. He was trying to say, just
Mhm.
because I didn't put paint on a canvas doesn't mean I didn't create this. This is a creation of my mind. And they said no. So they said no. So look, I don't know the exact answer to your question, but based on that, I would say even 1% AI would be too much.
Oh, that's interesting. And because I mean, I think Elon Musk is coming out with stuff like Neuralink. I don't know. Can't keep up with all his companies, but like where he's like implanting something so that your brain can talk directly to a computer. And then I could think that could just create a whole nother question as to who created what.
Yeah, right. And I think that's why they want to nip it in the bud and say it's got to be human created. Because otherwise, if I create an app and I own the copyright to that or patent to that app, and then that app creates IP,
Mhm.
how do I claim I own that IP, I would say, oh, well, I own that IP that created that IP. But what if that IP then creates another IP that creates another IP that creates another IP, right? It's kind of that mirror infinity. It's just too much. So they're saying, no, if it's got to be human author, it's got to be a human inventor, hard stop.
What for some of us who are like, I've lived this long without protecting any of my IP. Why would I do it now? Because they're like thinking legal fees, filing fees, I don't know, whatever. Like, what do you have any like horror stories or like reasons why we like some type of like worst case scenario? What happens when people don't protect their IP?
Well, worst case scenario is loss of IP, right? It gets into the ether and then it gets diluted and you can just no longer enforce against anyone. I would say one of the best reasons nowadays to get your IP registered is that almost every form of infringement right now is happening on social media, right? Like almost everything where infringement is occurring is on Instagram or TikTok. And both of those platforms, whether we're talking Meta or TikTok, have these online takedown forms. Even Amazon has one. And all you have to do is upload a copy of your certificate to the platform and it will immediately take it down. And so I would think one of the best reasons to get anything registered right now is so that you can immediately take down infringing content without having to pay a filing fee, without having to file a lawsuit and pay a big retainer to some litigator, without having to wait weeks or months or however long, maybe days if it's a TRO. But if you can't show irreparable harm and you can't get a TRO, you just got to wait until you get set and you can have a hearing. I mean, there are just like endless costs and time that go into waiting. But if you have someone who has posted a video of yours on, say, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, you can submit a takedown report to those platforms and say, hey, this post or this ad or this whole account is impersonating me or infringing my IP, please take it down. And they'll review it within about a day or so and remove it. Yeah.
Actually, that's good to know if you're protected. And there's another thing that made me think about, now there's all these AI like avatar softwares to making videos. Like they can make videos with your likeness without you doing it. And I'm just wondering, like, do we all need to protect our name, image, and likeness so that like somebody else doesn't take our likeness and try to make a video that looks like we're doing it, but really it's an avatar using our image?
Yeah, I mean, that's some Black Mirror stuff right there, right? But yeah, I think so. So, I think if you haven't protected your name, just go ahead and do your name. Image and likeness, there's no way to like register that, right? Like that's just something where when it happens, you can't just like register your likeness unless you have it functioning as a trademark somewhere, in which case you could register it as a trademark. But really, as far as protecting your name, I would register it. I have some attorneys who, their law firm is like the law office of John Smith, right? And we registered that. You can register that. It doesn't have to be something catchy like Powers Law Group, right? It can, or like you said earlier, there could be a trade name, right? But regardless of what the name is, I think that would be the play, is go ahead and register it.
What does Black Mirror mean? Is that?
Oh, Black Mirror is a show on Netflix.
Oh, okay. I was Googling it. Like, okay. I haven't watched it. Okay.
Yeah, so Black
Mirror. I didn't know if it was like a term of art that I was supposed to know.
Hey, let's get together and watch a Black Mirror episode together. They talk about AI and they talk about technology and all these ways that could like really happen. And there are these horror stories about. So I watched one the other day. I'm actually going to do a CLE at the annual meeting in June. So I had to do some homework by watching Black Mirror the other day. So
really?
Yeah, which is super fun. And I'm excited. And, what a great homework to prepare for, a presentation other than to watch Netflix. So I'm excited about that. But in this episode I was watching, this girl is dating this guy and he dies. and she is devastated. And somebody says to her, well, you should try this program, right? And so at first it's like and it's like AI, so it finds all of the information about him that's publicly available, and then it finds a recording of his voice, and it calls her and it talks to her, and it's like, hey, and it like uses the mannerisms that he would use, and um the, you know, like expressions, like it talks the way he talks and it sounds the way he sounds. And so she's like talking on the phone with this guy, right? And it's just like an AI bot that's basically pretending to be her ex who died, right? Well, then that software evolves and they email her and they're like, do you want the version 2.0, right? And the version 2.0 is like a video call. Okay, so now she can like see him, like it's like FaceTime or Zoom, right? And she's like chatting with her ex, her dead ex, and she's like, oh, I miss you. And then she's like, babe, I'm pregnant. So she has a baby and it's his, right? And she's like, look, this is our baby, right? Like I said, it's a very dark place that Black Mirror takes you, but it's all stuff that like could happen, right? And then they email her and they're like, do you want version 3.0? And she's like, yes, give me 3.0. And like literally she grows like a doll version of him in her bathtub. It's crazy. Anyway, check out Black Mirror. It's all about how AI could go wrong.
Oh, okay. That's how we're making it come back to what we're talking about.
Full circle here.
Full circle here. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I'm actually going to be going to the ABA Tech Show, and I know AI is like all that we're going to be talking about, and just sort of, I think there's all this fear of like lawyers aren't going to be needed, or most people aren't going to be needed, but then I think it'll just create new issues and where we will be needed, and we'll just have to figure out how to retool ourselves into being useful in that space. Wow. So
I think it'll create more messes that we will have to clean up. So I think we're safe for now.
Yeah, I agree. So we before we end any episode, we like to ask a few questions like, what is your favorite board game?
So I'm really good at Scrabble.
Oh, okay.
When I was growing up, my mom would play in Scrabble tournaments.
Oh, really?
And so she would practice against me and just like kick my butt, you know, like she would put the X on like a triple.
Poor little Leela.
So I'm really good at Scrabble. But nobody ever wants to play with me. I don't know why.
I mean, I could play with you. I have a set and I have 2 Scrabble dictionaries. They're little, but they're thick, big ones. Okay. And then what would you say is like your superpower? Like, we didn't get to talk all about you, but you taught us a lot about IP today. So thank you. But like, what do you think helps you? Because you've had your own firm for 11 years. You've been a professor. You're out there in social media. You're speaking. You're a rock star. What do you think is your superpower?
You're sweet. Thank you for that. I think my superpower is resiliency. I don't give up. Even if I trip and fall or, do something embarrassing, I just keep on going, just don't worry too much about what other people think of me and just keep trying.
No, that's important. I mean, you can have all the theory, but if you don't execute or if you stop at the first problem and you don't continue, and that's really important to be able to have that resilience. And one other fun thing about you is that you like Wonder Woman. So we were talking about this before. With all your Wonder Woman gear.
I love Wonder Woman a little bit too much. I've got this cute little Wonder Woman thing on my desk, and she says like motivational things, like if you push a button.
Really? Oh, yeah. That's cool.
Let's see what she has to say. Oh, she said, go the distance.
Well, it helps that you also look like Wonder Woman. You said you had the crowner too. Oh boy, props are coming. Yes, I can see the resemblance. For those listeners, she looks a lot like her.
Yeah, I don't know when it started, but it never stopped. And I really do love Wonder Woman. And, I think it's part of the whole resiliency thing, like trying to be strong and capable and independent. And believe in myself and believe in others and help others. You know, like in my minds, I think you're a Wonder Woman too, Ruby. And, you know, I think that if we all just dig inside of ourselves and be more like her, that's not a bad thing.
Definitely inspirational thoughts about Wonder Woman and staying the course and staying strong. Leela, how can people find you or connect with you and pick your brain and potentially hire you too? How can they find you?
Awesome. So my Instagram and TikTok handle is at Your IP Attorney, YOUR IP Attorney. Give me a follow. You can DM me. Of course, I also have a website, you know, that old thing that we used to have, which is madan-law.com. It's madan-law.com. And we also have that on Instagram and Facebook, Madan Law, MADANLAW. So, and if you want to give us a call, the office number is 713-364-4796.
Thanks so much, Leela. So today we learned a lot about IP, the 5 areas, and why we need to protect our IP. And this also helps us as business owners being able to help protect our clients' intellectual property and know how that affects business, and just also keeping an eye on AI and how things are ever evolving and where we're going. And we also learned a little bit of an episode of Black Mirror and whether we want to watch that or not. I think I'll pass, but it is quite fascinating to know where AI could go if we let it. But anyway, thanks so much for joining us on this insightful journey today. Your time and engagement means the world to us. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share and tell everyone else about it. And if you want to continue the conversation, please connect with us on Power Up Your Practice Facebook group and keep powering up. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Power Up Your Practice Law Practice Management podcast. I'm your host, Ruby Powers, and it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. Join us next week for another episode where we'll continue to explore insightful strategies for success. Power Up Your Practice with us. See you next time.